We should be creating the best child care pre-K system in the world. And that means creating millions of jobs taking care of our youngest Americans. We can create up to 13 million good-paying jobs by rebuilding our infrastructure. We need a new trade policy. Now, trade is not a sexy issue. Media doesn't talk about it virtually at all. But what has happened over the last 30 years, we have lost tens of thousands of factories in America and millions of good-paying jobs. And tonight, I tell corporate America, if you want us to buy your products, start building them right here in America, not in China. This campaign is listening to young people. And what young people are asking me is, how does it happen that when they do the right thing and go out and get the best education they can, they end up $30,000, $50,000 in debt? Now think about it. Think outside of the box for a second. All of you know that we are in a competitive global economy, and if we are going to succeed as a nation, we need the best educated workforce in the world. Is that right? In other words, we should be encouraging, making it easier for all of our people to get the education they need. Now, here is a simple truth. And the truth is that 40, 50 years ago, if you had a high school diploma, you could probably go out and get yourself a pretty good job. That's true. The world has changed. The economy and technology have changed. People today need more education if they're going to get a decent job. And that is why I believe that when we talk about public education, it is not good enough to talk just about first grade through 12th grade. That was great years ago. Right now, when we talk about public education, it should include tuition-free public colleges and universities. Let me ask you a question. Does anybody really think that that is a radical idea? It is not. It really is a commonsensical idea. And by the way, as some of you may know, in countries like Germany and Scandinavia, do you know how much college costs? Anybody know? Zero. And let me tell you something else, which you may or may not know. 40, 45 years ago in the state of California, going to the University of California, one of the great public universities in the world, was almost tuition-free. If we could provide tuition-free education in California 40 years ago, we damn well can do it today. Now, I grew up in a family that did not have a lot of money. My parents never went to college. And all over California, there are kids in the same position. There are kids whose parents never went to college. They don't know anybody who went to college. The idea of going to college is like going to the moon. It is not in their minds. What we have got to do is to say to every child in California and in Vermont and America that if you study hard in school, if you do well, regardless of the income of your family. Yes, you will be able to get a college education. How many people here are dealing with student debt? Raise your hands. Now, I have talked to people all over the country who are $300,000, $400,000 in debt after graduate school. I've talked to kids who have dropped out of college, $60,000 in debt. I've talked to people who have been paying off their student debt for decades. That is crazy. And that is why I believe that anybody with student debt in this country should have the right to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Too many people are stuck with interest rates of 6, 8, 10%, and that is wrong. Now, people ask me, and again, this is thinking outside of the box. People say, well, Bernie, you're a nice guy, you got white hair, you look like Santa Claus. You're giving away all of this free stuff. Free tuition at college, lowering student debt. How are you going to pay for it? All right, this is how we're going to pay for it. All of you remember that 8, 9 years ago, the greed and the recklessness and the illegal behavior on Wall Street drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And what did Wall Street do? What Wall Street did is went begging to Congress, and they said to the taxpayers of America, oh, please bail us out. We'll be good boys. Just bail us out. And against my vote, that's what Congress did. We are where we are today. Wall Street is doing just fine. I believe we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. That tax would bring in more money than we need to make public colleges tuition free and to substantially lower student debt. If the American people can bail out Wall Street, Wall Street can help the middle class today. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. There are 11 million undocumented people in this country, and many of them are living in the shadows, and they are living in fear, and many of them who are at work are being exploited because when you do not have legal rights, you're going to get cheated by your employer. A number of years ago, I was in a town called Immokalee, Florida, a small town where they grow much of the tomatoes used by McDonald's and Burger King. Literally, on the day I came into that town, a contractor had been arrested on charges of slavery, holding people in involuntary servitude 8 years ago. Can you believe that? And I met with the workers who were working at terrible wages, terrible working conditions, terrible housing. They were being ruthlessly exploited. We were able to make some changes there and improve the situation. But all over this country, those conditions continue to exist. What we need in America is comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And if the Republican Party refuses to do its job in Congress and help us pass comprehensive immigration reform, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to do all that I can. In my view, we should end the current deportation policies. Our immigration policy should be to bring families together, not divide them up. This campaign is listening to the African American community. And they are asking me a very simple but profound question. How does it happen that we have trillions of dollars to spend on a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into, but somehow we don't have the money to rebuild inner cities throughout this country? I have been to Flint, Michigan, where children were poisoned with lead in the water. I've been to Detroit, Michigan, where the public school system there is on the verge of a fiscal collapse. I've been to Baltimore, Maryland, where tens of thousands of people are addicted to heroin and cannot get the treatment they need. Instead of rebuilding communities in Afghanistan and Iraq, we've got to rebuild communities in the United States of America. This campaign is listening to a people whose pain is almost never heard, and that is the Native American community. All of you know that from before the time when this country became a country, when the first settlers came here, the Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and the treaties they signed were broken. We owe the Native American people a debt of gratitude that we can never fully repay. They have taught us some of the most important things that are part of our culture, including this lesson that we cannot fail to learn. And that is that as human beings, we are part of nature. We must coexist with nature. And that if we continue to destroy nature, our land, our water, our air, our climate, we are destroying ourselves. And one of the issues that I am very worried about, scientists are very worried about, is the issue of clean water in America and around the world. And that is why I believe we have got to end fracking. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. And I have talked to scientists all over this world. And what the scientists tell me is the debate is over. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. And as you well know, in California, climate change is already causing major problems in our country and around the world. Are we ready to take on the fossil fuel industry and Are we ready to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet? Are we ready to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to sustainable energy and energy efficiency? Are we ready to have our country lead the world in combating climate change and saving the planet? What this campaign is about is asking people to look outside of the status quo and to ask hard questions. Question: how many countries are there in the entire industrialized world that do not guarantee health care to all of their people? Anyone know? If you go to Europe, you go to the United Kingdom, you go to France, you go to Germany, you go to Holland, you go to Scandinavia. I live 50 miles away from Canada. All of those countries guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child in their countries. Now, I have been criticized for saying this, so I'll say it again. In my view, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. In this country, whether you are young or old, rich or poor, every person must be able to go to the doctor or the nurse when they need to go. We are going to tell the private insurance companies they cannot make billions of dollars off people's sickness. We are going to tell the drug companies they will not continue to rip us off and charge us the highest prices in the world. Here is crazy. You want to hear crazy? Crazy is when 1 out of 5 Americans who go to the doctor and get a prescription cannot afford to fill that prescription. That's crazy. Crazy is when senior citizens cut their pills in half because they don't have enough money to buy the medicine they need. That's crazy. Crazy is when the top 5 drug companies in our country last year made $50 billion in profit. Well, we got news for the drug companies. If I'm elected president, they are no longer going to charge us the highest prices in the world. They are no longer going to rip off the American people. Everybody here knows that real change, and I mean real change in American society, has never taken place from the top on down. It has always taken place from the bottom on up. Now think about it. Think about it. 100+ years ago, there were workers in California and in Vermont who were working 7 days a week. They could be fired at any minute. There were children of 10, 12 years of age working in factories, losing their hands and their fingers because they were around machinery they should not have been around. And what workers said with great courage is they stood up and they said, you know what, we're not animals, we are human beings, we want dignity on the job, we're going to form trade unions. And in many ways, the trade union movement and their courage to fight for decent wages and decent working conditions have given us the modern American middle class. In the midst of the abomination of slavery 150 years ago, there were African Americans and their allies who looked around them in horror and in disgust and said, we will someday make certain that in America we will end racism and segregation and bigotry. And we will never know how many people were killed in that struggle, how many people went to jail, how many people were beaten. But over the years, millions of people stood up and fought back against racism and bigotry. Now, the children of America probably don't know this, but 100 years ago, not a long time in historical context, 100 years ago, women in America did not have the right to vote, to get the education they wanted, or the jobs they wanted. 100 years ago. 100 years ago, what the establishment said to women, they said, your job is to stay home and have babies. That's what you are meant to do. But women said, sorry, you are not going to define us. We will define ourselves. And women and their male allies stood up and said loudly and proudly that in America, women will not be second-class citizens. If we were in this room 10 years ago, not a very long time ago, and somebody were to jump up and say, you know, Bernie, I think that in the year 2015, gay marriage will be made legal in every state in this country. Now think about it. Somebody said that 10 years ago, the person next to her would have said, you're crazy, that can't happen. It can't happen because there's too much homophobia, there's too much bigotry in America. It just can't happen. But because of the courage and the determination of the gay community and their straight allies, they stood up, and let me tell you something, it took a lot of guts to do this, but they stood up and they said that in America, people should have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of their gender. If we were in this room 5 years ago, no time at all, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, this federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, it's a starvation wage, it's ridiculous. We have got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Person next to him, you know what he would have said 5 years ago? He would have said, you're crazy. You want to more than double the minimum wage. You're a radical. You're an extremist. Maybe we can go to $8 an hour, maybe even $10 an hour, $15 an hour. You're dreaming. But you know what happened? Workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, in Burger King, in Wendy's, you know what they said? They went out on strike, and they told this country they cannot live on $7.25 an hour. And then all over the country, people started hearing them. And I was on demonstrations with these guys. I listened to their story. I was in Detroit. Listen to this. People in Detroit, $7.25, they can't even get 40 hours a week. 20 hours a week, they get in a bus, they go to another McDonald's, 20 hours a week at $7.25, they go to a third McDonald's. That is not a way to live in America. They stood up They fought back, and you know what happened? Up in Seattle, Washington, $15 an hour. In LA and San Francisco, $15 an hour. In New York State and California, $15 an hour. So what is my point? My point is that the only way we make real change is when people stand up by the millions, fight back, and demand that change. That's history. I have been all over this country. I've been from Maine to here in California, and this is what I have observed. All over this country, people are beginning to ask themselves, how does it happen? Why does it happen that I'm working 2 or 3 jobs and all of the wealth and income of the country is going to the top 1%? Why does it happen that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country? At the same time, we're seeing a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires. Why does it happen that when millions of people are unemployed, our infrastructure is collapsing? Why does it happen that women continue to make 79 cents on the dollar compared to men? Why does it happen that we continue to have a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections? Why does it happen that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave? Why does it happen that we continue to have a broken immigration system? Why does it happen that millions of Americans continue not to have health insurance? And all over this country, people are beginning to look around and they say, wait a minute, we're not a poor country, we are a rich country. But the wealthiest people cannot and should not get it all. And that is what this campaign is about. This campaign is based on social justice, economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice. On June 7th, there is going to be a very, very important primary, Democratic primary here in California. What I have learned throughout this campaign is that when the voter turnout is high, when working people come out in big numbers, when young people come out in big numbers, we win. Up to now, we have won in 20 states throughout this country. And if there is a large voter turnout on June 7th, California is going to be number 21. California is the most important state in terms of the Democratic nominating process. 475 delegates are up. If we can win here big in California on June 7th, if we can win in the other 5 states that are up, we're going to go into the Democratic convention with enormous momentum. We are going to go in with momentum, and we're going to come out with the Democratic nomination. And if we come out with the Democratic nomination, Donald Trump is toast. California is, of course, the largest state in our country, and it is one of the most progressive. On June 7th, let this great state tell the world you are prepared to go forward with a political revolution. Thank you.